Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavagai Tejasvinavadhetamastu ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. It has been quite some time since we had a class, 3 weeks. So glad to be back. I don't know if the line of inquiry was kept alive by you all. If you have any questions, you might post in the chat. I will address them after I continue on the topic that we discussed last class. We talked about living a life of dharma, why it is important. So we said a pattern of life created according to the rules of dharma. According to the knowledge of dharma, the rules of dharma that govern various aspects of our life, we create consciously a dharmic pattern of life in every aspect of our life, be it work, personal life, relationships, finances, entertainment, clothing, everything. The type of practices that we do, spiritual practices, the diet, every aspect of life, including how to go to toilet and wash yourself after. Including that, we have a pattern of discipline dictated by the knowledge of dharma. So what happens is, when this pattern becomes the dominant force that directs our life, our personal pattern based on our story, our past, which is a consequence of ignorance, desire, and fear. Our entire past, our personal story, it might be very dear to us. Your personal story may be very important for us. That is what is called as ego. Being very egoistic about our personal story, like how these many self-help Western psychologists, they over blow up the personal story. They give excessive importance to the personal story. Like that, we tend to overindulge in our personal story. Right? It may be important for each one of us, but if we want our journey towards spiritual freedom to progress, we will have to become free from the entanglements and compulsions of our personal story, not making it the driving force of our life. Instead, we can try to become part of the cosmic story, which is Ishvara Srishti. We have to move from Jiva Srishti to Ishvara Srishti. We have discussed this point umpteen number of times in the past 1 year or more that we have had these Monday sessions, satsangs. Moving from Jiva Srishti to Ishvara Srishti is all the spiritual lifestyle is about. Lifestyle and knowledge. The spiritual life is nothing but moving out of my Jiva Srishti, or getting less obsessed with my Jiva Srishti, and tuning my entire system to the Ishvara Srishti. Ishvara Srishti, let us use the word, I am just calling it as the cosmic life. It is one life that rules like a great current of the river, like the current of the river Ganga. The universal life flows on. It carries everything, and it carries your little life, and it also supports your little story. Okay. So, why we should move from our personal story to the cosmic story is because my personal story is full of struggle, while the cosmic story is spontaneous, fullness, life, infinity, joy, completeness, and it is constant growth. vimarsha, prakasha. It is constant growth and expansion and expression of joy in every moment at every point in the universe. Right? The cosmic story is one of joy and freedom and eternity, while my personal story is one of struggles and a mixture of pain and pleasure. When I'm talking about the joy or the ananda of the cosmic story, ananda is very different from pleasure or what you call as vishayananda, the mediated little experiential pleasure. So pleasure and pain is a dichotomy. We are always, when you want to enjoy some pleasure, it is preceded and it is followed by some kind of a pain. That is why we have in Yoga Sutra, there is a beautiful sutra, because of so reasons, parinama tapa samskara dukkair guna vritti virodascha dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. It comes in the second chapter of Yoga Sutra. You can Google it. Dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. If you put in the search engine, it will come some Yoga Sutra commentary. If you read the commentary, you will understand. So all this information is available. So in Yoga Sutra, it says, for a person with the right understanding, in tune with reality, whose understanding is tuned with reality, he sees pain in every mediated experience. Every experience has the seed of pain in it. Right? Dukkameva sarvam vivekinaha. It might sound like Buddhism. It is basically Vairagya. It is called, Apara Vairagya, lower Vairagya. So it is basically you are seeing things for what they are. It is objectively non-exaggerated understanding of the inherent limitation in the experiences of life, in the achievements of life, etc. So this does not mean you are depressed. It is just understanding that my personal story is a consequence of ignorance. Me considering myself as an individual itself is an illusion. I am not what I think I am. When this individual I, what I call as me, this individuality that I cherish so much, when this itself is an illusion, everything else in life that is a product of this I, this little I, is unreal. So chasing the unreal and thinking that I am enjoying something through a sensory mind mediated experience and calling it as ananda, pleasure. The example given for that, how is this? Sri Shankaracharya in a text says, it is like a dog biting the bone. It bites the bone so hard that some splinter or something in the bone, it hurts its gums and its own gum bleeds and it is tasting its own blood. But imagines, the dog projects that the blood is coming from the bone and thinks that that's a very juicy bone while the blood is coming from its own mouth, right? So it is your own essence. It is your own essence that reflects in the things which you experience as ananda, and because of ignorance we project it on the things and we tend to think that it is those things that give us happiness. It is those relationships that give us happiness. It is those achievements that give us happiness. So the experience of happiness is common to all the different types of happiness that we enjoy. The experience of satisfaction and happiness is common to all the moments of happiness. It is the same. No matter how I arrive at happiness, at the moment of happiness and satisfaction, the feeling of satisfaction, happiness, joy, whatever you call it, is the same. You go to a stand-up comedy, the guy is making jokes and telling something and you laugh. So throughout the 1 hour, you might be laughing 5 or 6 times or some 10 times, let us say, laughing, rolling with laughter, or belly aching laughter, right? The jokes are different, but your laughter, the excitement of the laughter is the same. In various ways, the comedian tries to make you laugh. But the experience of laugh is common to all the jokes, right? So similarly, with all these jokes in this life, what we call as ananda, happiness and the joy that you experience from things. If I get that, I will be happy. If I get this, I will be happy. All that. The ways of arriving at the happiness might be different, but the experience of happiness is common to all. It is the same. And when we investigate it, and with a little help from the scriptures and the teaching, we can understand that happiness is something inherent in me, not it is not inherent in the object. Always I am coming back to happiness. Something disturbs my happiness, then I do some things, then the the block for the happiness, the disturbance is taken out of the way, then I arrive back at happiness. If you really analyze your experience of desire, acquiring the object of desire and experiencing happiness, then some other desire, acquiring the object of desire and experiencing happiness. If you analyze it from your childhood until now, the happiness experience has always been the same. And you can see that this experience is something not coming from object, because if it comes from different object, it has to be of different types, right? So it will be good if we can do some inquiry into that in our free times, right? So my story is fundamentally that of ignorance, which is causing me to wrongly project this objective world and various goals and achievements and satisfactions and desires and scope for happiness in the various experiences of this world. This is my personal story. So it is always that of a struggle. I am never satisfied permanently. I'm always going behind something or the becoming. There is always becoming. I want to become better than this. I want something to become better than the way it is right now. So if you sit quietly and just, a simple thing like, you can try for yourself. We all know that the breathing takes care of itself, right? We all know that. When you watch a movie, when you're listening to my class right now, or when you're taking a walk, the breathing takes care of itself. You all know that. But, you try to sit quietly and just observe the breathing. Just listen to the breathing, observe the breathing. Don't do anything. You will see it will be very difficult. You will constantly make some effort or the other to make the breathing better. You will try to breathe more, breathe slow, breathe deep, hold the breath, something or the other. You will not let the breath alone. So this is a deep-seated habit. This is a habit of becoming, habit of constantly meddling with the current moment, constantly meddling with this field of experience that I have, the sense of doership, compulsive sense of self-expression and doership. There is no logic to it. It's just a deeply ingrained habit. So behind every instinctive urge that we have, that every instinctive urge to act, to do, the sense of doership, behind every expression of my sense of doership is my entire story, my karmic story from this life, past life. The whole thing is there behind every urge to act. If you see that very keenly, it is not just it is like when we get angry at something. If you really analyze, in many occasions we can see it is not simply the anger on that thing. That event would have triggered an already existing anger. There is already some pent up emotions and everything, and the whole thing comes up together. It's like a mom scolding the kid. You do a very small mistake, the mom is enduring, she's looking at it, taking notes. Or even better, it's like a wife scolding, picking up a fight with the husband. She's taking notes. Every move that you do, she's taking notes, right? So she's watching you, where you are looking, how you are walking, how you are saying yes or no, what expressions you make when she wears a dress or a jewelry, how do you, whether you appreciate or not appreciated when there is food on the table. There is constantly, she's taking notes, and these impressions are building up in the background, right? So there is this anger account, frustration account being created, and it is building up inside. And one fine morning, you do something very silly. It's absolute silly something. It does not deserve that explosion. And then she explodes for a very silly thing. It is not for that thing, but behind that explosion is an entire history of all the mess this husband made. For probably since the day they were married, since the time they were going around the fire until now, for probably, which is a 40-year married life. The entire 40 year of frustration will come in that one silly moment. The same thing when a mom scolds a child, all the frustration will come. So in the same way, when we are instinctively pushed to respond to a given stimuli in our everyday experience, that response, that stimulus response, right? So the response that we give to the life situations around us is not just for that. There is an entire history of my conditioning at the body level, at the prana level, at the samskara level, at the knowledge level. All that is there, and all my complexes, my ego complexes, my and all my emotional knots, everything comes together in every moment of self-expression. So my whole story is there. So when I really look into it sincerely with enough objectivity about myself as an individual, I can see that my personal story is that of struggle. It is a constant yo-yo between pleasure and pain, happiness and frustration, and all that, right? And it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. Anadi avidya. I've been taking thousands and millions of births, right? And then finally, I'm here trying to listen to some Vedanta, listening to some, try to do some spiritual inquiry. Probably the result of the punya from thousands and thousands of well-lived lives, we are able to have a conscious spiritual inquiry into the possibility of eternal freedom. So when I look into this and really understand the limitation of my personal story, and I am also presented with the possibility of something really wonderful and grand that seems nothing like my little pathetic personal story, that is so grand, it's and it is free from all kinds of limitations, the eternal life, the cosmic life, right? Which can be experienced right this moment while we are alive. It is not after some death, after I do all my rituals and prayers, and then I die, and then I go to some heaven, and then I will get I will live forever and very nicely. No, not that. It's right here. Your current moment can be transformed completely into that of freedom and joy and happiness, and in tune with the eternal flow of life, right? So that requires a complete erasing of this personal story. Complete erasing of this personal story. This personal story will not get erased unless the source of all that is my fake individuality is erased. This is what we are working with when we are talking about yoga and Vedanta. When we are talking about spiritual life, this is what we are doing. We are erasing this noise in this cosmic orchestra. Now, if you understand this cosmic life as an orchestra, my personal story is like a little noise, wrong shruti, some wrong note that is making a mess in the whole thing. That is why humans are creating so much disharmony, because we are caught up in our personal stories, and this personal story somehow becomes more important than nature, more important than the universal life, right? So because of that, there is so much of disharmony. I'm constantly pushing myself on things. I'm constantly pushing myself on people. I'm constantly trying to assert my presence, my self-importance, excessive self-importance, at the cost of nature, at the cost of environment, at the cost of the divine joy and the divine life, at the cost of others' welfare sometimes, right? And at the cost of my own welfare sometimes. My emotional drama overwhelms my knowledge of what is good for me. So I say, when I'm very stressed out, I had a very difficult day, I need to have a smoke. Many people say that, smokers say that, oh, I had a very difficult discussion, I need to have a drink, I need to unwind, all that. This way of somehow falling back into unconsciousness because I can't handle the consequences of my personal story anymore. This is all the common man knows. But in yoga, in Vedanta, in Tantra, we show another way. We say, we present another possibility for me as a human being because I have a choice over my action. Animals don't have a choice over their action. Their actions are completely programmed. If there is going to be a stimuli, its response is already programmed. It cannot discriminate. But a man, a human being, a woman, man, woman, human being can discriminate and exercise the choice over action, right versus wrong, dharma versus adharma, to act or not to act, to restrain oneself, indulgence versus control, decadence versus discipline. So we always have a choice. So when we are in tune with the dharmic principles of life, we are overriding this personal story. We are creating a certain very powerful pattern that helps us to develop more choice with respect to this constantly asserting personal story from our subconscious. We develop more choice towards this. We are able to investigate it. We are able to understand it. We are able to stay still and not be pushed around by all the complexes that have developed inside. So we taste freedom. It's a wonderful line that J. Krishnamurti used to say, freedom is not choice. We all generally used to think, whatever, if I wish something, if I desire something, I am able to do that. We say, I am free. But freedom is not choice. It's a fantastic line. Freedom is not having a need to choose. We can say it to some extent. But definitely freedom is not choice. If I feel that I need to choose this over that, what is it that is making me choose this over that? Right? So, when I say we have a choice, I don't mean choosing one like over another like, one pleasure over another pleasure. I mean the choice, exercising the choice to not be driven by my inner pressure, and the freedom to do what I understand as right, freedom to act appropriately, the freedom to respond to the moment from knowledge, respond to the moment in attention, rather than responding to the moment under compulsion. So this is what dharma gives us, right? So this is external. When we talk about sadhana, spiritual sadhana, there are two dimensions to it practically. Actually speaking, in reality, there is no external or internal, but practically speaking, there is an external dimension to sadhana and internal dimension to sadhana. Bahirmukha, Antarmukha. In Lalita Sahasranamam, the 1,000 names of the goddess, there is a line Antarmukha Samaradhya, Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. She is easily attainable and she can be worshipped and adored much easier inside, or well worshipped, and she prefers to be worshipped inside, and she is very difficult to be attained outside. Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. It is very difficult to connect to her outside, but it is very easy to connect to her inside, and it is more proper to connect to her inside, and she prefers that to be connected inside, it says. So if you ideally say our spiritual practice is actually internal, but practically, when you see in experience, it appears to have two dimensions, external dimension and internal dimension. External dimension, for our normal practical talk, we can say the way we dress, the way we conduct ourselves, the behavior, which includes our dress, our fashion statement, how we live, how we respond in action to different situations, how we speak, and what commitments we take in life, how we prioritize our actions, how we choose our job, our relationships, our diet, and how we choose to sit, walk, move, everything, every little thing, what we choose to wear, what colors we choose to wear, how we conduct ourselves in the society, how we conduct ourselves when we are alone, all this is external, right? And also what kind of altar we maintain. When it comes to the deity, there is a maintaining an altar, that is doing puja, that is doing some ritualistic, some minimal ritualistic worship, at least something, where you have an external way of life in terms of actions, in terms of choices, in terms of choices over work and relationships and all that. uh, we have an external code of conduct. In our Shastra, it is called as Charya. Charya and Kriya. In Tamil, we say Sariyai, Kiriyai. Okay, Charya and Kriya. Kriya is special actions in terms of ritualistic worship, in terms of mantra, puja, japa, archana, etc. All that comes under Kriya. And also our asana, pranayama, ityadi. All this comes under Kriya. Charya is discipline, yama, niyama, and certain restrictions, certain prohibitions, certain special disciplines that we undertake. All that yama, niyama comes under Charya. Means Charya means the path, the how conduct, the behavior. Then Kriya, special practices that helps to align our senses. So why this external spiritual life is required is because if you see in our normal everyday life, the mind, the current of the mind, the current of your consciousness is always externalized. No, if you sit quietly, there is always a tendency to move the body. There is always a tendency to open the eyes and look around. The moment there is a sound, there is a flow of, or there's a rush of sensation in the body and an urge to open the eyes and look what is there. A simple thing, right? You are in a quiet room and then suddenly you hear some noise. Immediately you can feel a rush from the background to see what it is there. So the mind is always flowing outwards, seeking security, seeking pleasure, seeking seeking the objects of desire, avoiding pain, all that, right? So the program of the mind is always directed outwards through the senses towards various objects. So this is the natural flow of the mind. So this natural flow of the mind carries with it the potential of your personal story. It is the personal story that drives this outward mind, this natural flow of the mind towards various things. When you look at a crowd, your eye falls on one person more than other person. When you look at a window shopping, when you go for window shopping, you just look at a shop. A few articles attract your attention more than other articles. Why is that? It is not just the color, but it is also my perception of what is outside is conditioned and driven by my samskaras, my inner programming, which is the result of all my years of life in this life and past life and everything. So it comes from the heart. The samskara comes and drives the chitta, the mind, and it commands the buddhi to think in a certain way about it. Right? So that is why some things are always looking more attractive than other things. Some people are always feeling more important than other. Some things are more likable than other. So this is all because of samskara. So the samskara and vasana is what my personal story is, and it constantly drives me outward. So what I do is I create my outward matrix according to dharma. So it becomes like a wall. So how a normal object of desire excites me. No? So anytime I interact with an external object, immediately it triggers an internal response. Correct? I bring an apple in front of you, it will trigger one response. I bring an orange in front of you, I remove the apple and put an orange, it will trigger some other response, right? So any object, the moment my eyes fall on an object, the moment my smell taste, perceives, the moment I perceive a smell, the moment I feel a touch, any of the five senses, the moment I hear a song, a sound, immediately, instantly there is a response from inside towards it. It's like almost instantaneous, right? So a so-called external detail invokes an inner response. So just like this, when I have an external detail that is in tune with the principles of dharma, that is in tune with the spiritual knowledge that I am pursuing, that is tuned to the various principles that are conducive to awakening the spiritual samskaras in me, then what happens? The external detail will stimulate an inner response that is in alignment with my spiritual aspirations. All of us are a mixed bag. Okay, we had innumerable number of past lives. So all of us, if you project it to infinity, the apparently the worst sinner has the scope of being the greatest saint somewhere. He has a saint inside him or her. The greatest saint has a sinner inside him or her. So the possibilities in each person are endless. That is why we don't have to judge ourselves based on, or judge anybody else for that matter, based on how they are apparently looking. What is their birth? What is their background in this life? All that is a small tip of the iceberg of this endless personal story that is there. So if the person has a spiritual samskara, the external detail will stimulate it. Somebody's mic is on, kindly switch it off. There is a noise here.
But they leave at 3.
Somebody's
They leave
somebody's mic
Manu,
is
please
on.
mute
Maybe the
yourself.
host can switch it off.
Barbara, please mute yourself. Thank
Right. I will come to, there is a question. I will come to the question after this, right? So the external detail invokes an internal response. This is why it becomes very important to spiritualize my life. It is very important to choose satsanga over dussanga. It becomes important to choose sattvic lifestyle over rajasic or tamasic lifestyle, or majority sattvic lifestyle, minimum rajasic, moderate rajasic lifestyle, and minimum or no tamasic lifestyle, right? So based on one's nature, one can choose. So one can decide how much I can handle right now. It is important not to have too much pressure, but it is very, very useful to embed external details in our life that will invoke a spiritual response from inside. Invoke a response from inside us that is in line with our spiritual aspiration. A simple thing like we are all looking at mobile phones. A wallpaper in your mobile phone could be your Ishta Devata or your Guru, or some spiritual quote or something that spiritual inspires you from inside, right? Instead of putting some Bollywood actor or some model or somebody, uh, you could choose something that invokes a spiritual samskara inside you. See what you interact with. We Indians have this habit. In our workspace we will have a small Ganesha or something there. So if you have a practice going on, and if you have some, so what you can do is, if you have some things that are connected with our practice, we can try to understand what are they, and then we can probably embed those articles. You can embed those some aspect of that in our external life here and there, so that whenever our senses come into contact with that, the moment I come into my room, something in my room inspires me to connect with my spiritual samskara. The moment I enter my car, something in the car inspires me to connect to my spiritual samskara. The moment I open my wardrobe, the dresses that I have, my wardrobe inspires me to dress in a way that allows me to carry myself in line with my spiritual samskara. The moment I if I am going to eat food, if I'm going to cook, I cook with a certain attitude and I do some chantings and all that, and then I bring in that the good vibrations connected to my sadhana in the food while I cook, and then when I eat that food is going to go inside and awaken the spiritual samskara, nourish my spiritual samskara. So like this, every aspect of life, it can be, there can be a spiritual detail that will invoke the spiritual samskara inside you. This is called external, aligning my external life in line with my internal spiritual goals. Now, what about the internal practice? The internal practice is basically our japa, our dhyana, pranayama, the concentration, dharana, all that comes under internal practice. Now, in my internal, so-called internal practice, what is happening? I am making effort that will override the habitual movement of the mind and bring the mind to my object of concentration. That is what is fundamentally internal practice, nothing else. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi. In various ways, I arrive at dharana. The concentration through mantra, through concentrating on some chakra or visualization, or contemplation on a spiritual principle. So various ways I arrive at it. Arriving at it is nothing but overriding the habitual compulsion of the mind to run here and there. Right? This is what is internal sadhana, nothing else. Internal sadhana is just concentration, nothing else. So when I have this complete alignment, when I have a good alignment of my external life, what happens is the flow of my mind inside becomes very conducive for the purpose of my concentration. The struggle component will be very less. The struggle to stay in my mantra when I'm doing japa will be very less, for example, right? And also, we will not have very compulsive thoughts constantly running behind some emotion or some ambition or some anxiety. These things cannot take over my intellect. I will be able to have a certain kind of a choice, just let go of it in my mind, and it will be very easy for the natural current of the mind to turn towards my conscious target, which is my deity, which is my mantra, or which is a contemplative principle. Whatever I am consciously contemplating on or focusing on, the natural current of the mind will turn towards it much easier when I have I have my external way of life very aligned with the my internal spiritual goals and tendencies and aspirations, right? So this is what I wanted to say. That is why it is important to override my personal story. Let my external life connect to the spiritual story that I want to make, and not reinforce my personal story, not reinforce my ego, not reinforce my identity. My identity is not getting me anywhere. My identity is useful for everyday transaction, but my identity is not me. My identity is only a label that I have put on myself. It might be okay for transactional purposes, but it is very important to grow out of it and to see ourselves as, or to be available to see ourselves as we are. Right? That is called Atma Anatma Viveka. So this is the continuation of what we discussed in the last class. And ideally, there is no internal, external. What appears as external is actually internal. But for practical purposes, we are presenting it like that. The essence of what we discussed today is to grow out of my personal story and align myself with the cosmic story. So around that, we were discussing Jiva Srishti to Ishvara Srishti. There is a very interesting, useful question here. I would like to listen about Uparama in Adhikaritvam. How can I check what is and isn't my responsibility? Fantastic. Again, it comes to the concept of dharma, swadharma. Uparamaha is basically swadharma. But swadharma is very specific when we come to Vedanta Shastra. Swadharma is very specific. It may not be relevant for our times and for an international audience. So how we can understand is, look at the sense of guilt you have. Now, the sense of guilt is not an absolute yardstick, because we might have developed fake values. The society is full of fake values. It has imposed upon us. If we grow up in a society which is filled with fake values, we might be very guilty for the things that we need not feel guilty about. So study of Dharma Shastra kind of gives us a basic idea about what is important, what is not important, what is right and what is wrong. That is there. To have some study is required to understand Dharma, definitely. Like Vidura Niti, Dharma Shastra, Manu Dharma Shastra, these kind of things help us a little bit. Studying about what is Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic in the Bhagavad Gita, studying dharmic scriptures like Ramayana, and according to the commentary, listening to the Dharma, the stories about and the discourses on Dharma by the Shastra experts. These kind of things over a time will improve our clarity on Dharma, at least Samanya Dharma, and to prioritize. For example, we have Ahimsa, Satya, Brahmacharya, Asteya, Aparigraha. This is a certain vow we have taken, right? And also, along with that, it is important to understand what we can versus what we want. What we can, what we must. What we can is a big list. Within what we can, there is a small subset which is what we must. This what we must is what will generate guilt in a very deep level if you ignore. And it will come back to you. If you ignore what you are supposed to do, it will not leave you alone. It will come back to your life. Whenever your Saturn comes in the right place, it will bring back all the things that you neglected, and it will force you to focus on it. There is some big Saturn transit everybody is talking about, March 29th. Saturn moving to Pisces, Shani Perchi. So all the astrologers are very busy about it. So the thing is, they say, the Sade, Sati and all that. So Shani Deva, the god, Lord Saturn, when he becomes the dominant factor in your life, he will bring your attention to things that you are supposed to do, right? So I'm just telling because of the current time for the Saturn transit. But basically what it is if you are ignoring what you must, it will somehow come back and call for your attention. You cannot ignore. It will come as a blockade in what you want to do. Whenever you want to do something, this what you must, if you had ignored, it will come and present itself as a block. It will frustrate. It will ask for your attention. It's like a kid that has not gotten attention. It will come and disturb you when you are in the middle of your work. So it's like that. Karma is like a kid that has lost attention. So duty, what you must, it comes under duty. In the whole list of what you can, right? What you must, then there is what you should not. There are things that you can, but you must not. And there are things that you may. I may do this. It's okay to do this. So, okay, I have some free time. I can do something. I can make a difference in somebody. So out of, as an act of practicing kindness, compassion, to open your heart, as a part of your sadhana, you can do some charity. You can reach out to some person in need. All those things are there. But Uparama in Adhikaritvam basically means sticking to what I must, and slowly taking myself out of all that I need not. Even though I can do a bunch of things, but I slowly free myself from all that, at least to the extent that I don't create a cycle of commitment. I can do a lot of things, but I decide not to do those things, and I am very careful not to create a cycle of commitment, a new set of commitments which I don't need to create, where I am, which is not a must. It is not my duty. It is not my responsibility, but I create. Then I make it my responsibility to avoid those things. And to understand what is my responsibility, and say what isn't my responsibility, we need to use two things. One is common sense and the basic ethical principles talked about in our Dharma Shastras. For example, I will give a simple thing, and there are details into it. It is not easy. It takes some introspection, it takes some thinking, it takes some study. But generally, we can look at what is our fancy and what is essential. For example, somebody is hungry. I can give them, I can share the food that I have, whatever little money I have, I can buy them some food, or I can share the food, I can cook and offer food, serve them food. Now, the food has to be eatable and a good food, nourishing food, like how I would eat for myself. But giving that person a meal need not be a luxury experience. Right? It need not. I don't have to take that person to a Michelin star restaurant to take care of their hunger. That's not required. Now, it is my responsibility, let us say, it is my responsibility to take care of my aged parents. I am the only child, for example. Right? So the parents took care of me. So when my parents are old, I have to be available for them. Take care of them when they are sick, or take them to the doctor, maybe do some small things here and there. But I don't have to respect every wish of theirs. Their wishes and desires come from their own personal story. I am not responsible for their personal story. I am only responsible for a decent level of comfort and some basic level of care, and maybe a little bit more. I spend some time with them, some quality time, and but there is also responsibility on the parents' side. On the parents' side, they should not expect you to live your entire life for their sake. Similarly, how a parent need not live their entire life for the child's sake. In this life, this child is your child. In the past life, it is something else. The soul that comes as your child is not your entire life. As a mother, mothers have a tendency to overdo motherhood. They think the child is all their life. No, the child is not all your life. You were there before the child, and you will continue to be there after the child, or after your death, or God forbid something happens to the child. You're continuing to going to live. And this child is your relationship in this Janma, and also your responsibility only to a certain point in this life. Even though the relationship might be there, the responsibility will not be there. After a certain point, you are not responsible for your child, right? So like this, we have to just sit and think about it. Where I am making an excess, where I am doing excess and overdoing my responsibility, look around, use your common sense, use the normal common sense ethics of our times, combined with the eternal principles of Dharma that we learn from the scriptures, and in discussion with the gurus, what the Mahatmas have said, what the great souls have said, all that, and also see myself as who I am. Who am I? Am I a person who is desirous of liberation, who is preparing myself to study Vedanta, or am I a person who is behind Artha and Kama, worldly goals? I don't understand liberation and all that. I just want money, name, fame, and comforts, and I want some pleasures. But I want to be a righteous person. I would like to understand the spiritual principles in life so that I don't go overboard. If I am Arti or a Kami, then my set of responsibilities are different. Charity becomes my responsibility. But if I am a Mumukshu or a Jigyasu, I am entirely devoted to self-knowledge. Charity is not my responsibility. So, my contribution to the society is proportional to my being myself as a consumer. If a person, for example, takes sannyasa, we also have to understand this, shamadama uparama, when we say in adhikaritvam, it actually means sannyasa. The fourfold qualifications of Vedanta is actually sannyasa. Okay. Shanyasta Shravanam Kuryat, renounce and then listen to Vedanta. That is what the scriptures have said. But unfortunately or fortunately, we are not having proper physical entire renunciation in this life. We are not committing to a renunciant lifestyle. The institutions are all corrupt, and it is very difficult to live a proper renunciant lifestyle unless there is a support system at the social level, at the family level, or no family. It's a joke to say family, but unfortunately, since the social level, there is support system has almost crumbled. It is available only in a few pockets. It is not practical to expect everybody to become a renunciant. It is renunciation with conditions applied. So it is more of an internal renunciation. Personally, I don't have any personal goals. I am not behind money. I am not behind pleasures. I am sure about that. I am not behind, lokeshana, putreshana, viteshana. They say, desire for progeny and sons. And, I should have a great family. My name should continue after my death. These kind of things, all these goals don't make sense to me anymore. I am completely committed to my goal of enlightenment, my goal, moksha, which is in the form of enlightenment. I am completely committed to that. And I want to devote all my free time for my study and contemplation. And I am not very actively seeking pleasures. Okay, I have some pleasure here and there because I'm a normal person. But I am not actively. There is a difference between a kami, a person driven by desire, actively seeking pleasures, and a mumukshu who enjoys some harmless pleasures here and there at time to time without much effort going into it. An example would be, let us say I would like to have the pleasure of having a certain sweet. In Chennai, there is a place where they make badam halwa. Okay, a very famous place near T Nagar. They make badam halwa, and there is a huge queue for that badam halwa. That halwa will disappear in half an hour. The moment it comes, they will bring 5 or 6 trays, and it will disappear in half an hour or 45 minutes. Everything is gone. You go a little late, it's gone. Now, if I want to enjoy that badam halwa, I am a kami. I am a person driven by desire. I am not a mukshu. I will have to stay in the queue and plan it very meticulously, and then I will get the badam. So I am ready to go through the entire process of getting that badam halwa by standing in the queue and all that. There are a lot of people who do that. They have absolutely no regret. But a mumukshu who would appreciate that badam halwa will not go through the entire trouble. If that badam halwa comes by chance, he has the samskara in him to appreciate it and enjoy it and say a thank you. This is what, for example, this is what we call as some harmless pleasures here and there, but not taking great pains to get it. So this is how we do it, right? So similarly, for this kind of a person, Uprama would be, don't get into social service, environmental protection, volunteering. All these things are not for this person who is serious about moksha. Don't try to improve the world and make the world a better place for everyone. Don't try to do that. That's not your job. Your job is to study, contemplate, and devote as much of your free time for personal sadhana. If you get restless, if you are not able to stay with yourself, if you are a restless person, then you can devote your free time for volunteering, because at least you are using your restlessness for collective welfare, and you are not getting restlessness for personal gratification. So you are moving from personal story to cosmic story by volunteering and contributing for social welfare. I am tuning myself more to dharma rather than artha and kama. So that way my volunteering helps me to become less restless person. So in that context, social service and volunteering and all those things are okay. But if I am not a restless person, if I am naturally a contemplative person, if I am able to study hours together, meditate hours together and contemplate, and I am very content by myself, and I am very satisfied with some, with some minimal food that is not tasting horrible, but just, normal palatable decent food, and some basic level of clothing, and some common sense level of comforts that lets me sleep in peace without mosquitoes, So if I am okay with this level, it is important to minimize my social life to the barest minimum. It is important not to go after things that will project my individuality, bring name and fame. I may be good in so many things, I might probably uh, uh, I might probably perform a social role much better than somebody else. But it's like a retired American president. I may know all the state secrets. I may be, I might have been the commander in chief of all the forces. But once I am retired, it's not my job. I am here to live my retired life in peace and probably give some advice once in a while, something like that, right? So it is very important not to project myself. So Uprama here basically means getting gradually reducing my responsibility, gradually reducing my unnecessary involvement in social and socio-political and environmental things, volunteering, etc., and gradually minimizing my family commitments, stopping myself from creating new commitments, and gradually getting rid of the current commitments slowly one by one and not creating new commitments, and gradually making it more and more possible for me to live alone without having too many obligations, so that I am able to create more time for myself. This is what is Umpramaha. Swadharma Anushtanameva, it is written, but practically I would present it in this way, like how I have told right now in Adhikaritvam. Remember, Uparama comes in the Adhikaritvam for Vedanta. Vedanta is all about sannyasa. So we are trying to discuss the basic principle of sannyasa and see how to make it a practical reality in our current reality of modern life that we have. Yes, and for an international audience who are not from the very small bubble of Vedic tradition that we have. So this definition is generally for a common audience. It is not for those who are doing Vedadhyayanam, taken proper sannyasa, diksha and all that. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking for us, for the normal everyday crowd that we are talking about, right? So for that, Uparama could be understood in the way that with all that I have discussed now, you can probably arrive at an understanding of Uparama. But case by case and situational interpretation of Uparama for an individual, you might have to discuss it with me personally, and I will be able to provide a better clarity on how this situation you could handle according to the principle of Uparama, that I can probably facilitate in a direct one-to-one interaction. Okay, so there are no other questions here. So with this, I will conclude my class. Kindly listen to this, and if you are listening to this in YouTube, and if you are able to appreciate it in your mind, please show your appreciation as a like, and share it with your friends, and please watch it, listen once or twice, and think about it. See how you can implement it. If you come up with some questions, bring your questions to the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavadishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sate. Thank you very much.